'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've travelled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville,
Tasmania,
Strathrown, Proserpine, Ulladulla, Darwin, Gingin, Lillaquen, Muckdilla,
Deloraine,
Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man.
That's Lucky Star, and he is talking about getting around Australia. Well, we normally go and talk to someone on the phone, but we've got someone in the studio today who has been to regional Australia. His name is Robert Cameron. Rob, morning. Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting Radio Show.
Good morning, Neil. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Now, we have a little bit of limitation on us today because we must start the last tune at 10:54. All right, so we've got only 8 minutes.
No, I should be able to jam.
I would have thought so.
2 weeks of Tassie travel into 8 minutes.
Tassie travel. Now, we are, of course, focusing on regional, so we could probably steer past Hobart. But tell us about your travels around regional Tasmania and what you found.
Well, I just want to let people know how ridiculously inexpensive it is to have a holiday. You think about it, if you jumped on a plane, flew to Hobart or Launceston, then hired a car and drove around Tassie for 2 weeks, what that might cost you. But you drive your own car onto the Spirit of Tassie, have a magnificent voyage across Bass Strait, then drive your car off, and it's just like you're still being home, and then drive around all these beautiful places. Total cost under $2,000, including fuel.
For two of you?
For two of us.
Mm.
I would consider, ladies and gentlemen, you should give that a bit of a tick for your next holiday. I was excited to hear the current Spirit of Tassie's hold about 500 motor vehicles and 900 people. The new ones that are coming later this year hold 1,800 people and nearly 1,000 cars. So they're clearly looking at this as being a holiday over the future, and I would recommend it highly. And I'm not a holiday person.
No, you
I'm
are.
not.
Your nose is the shape it is because it is regularly attached to the grindstone, isn't it?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm just a bit of a homebody. But no, it was an enjoyable couple of weeks, saw a beautiful thing. We should touch on Hobart a little bit because it was
well,
one
it's kind of regional anyway, isn't it? Good morning to our Hobart friends.
It was the first place we woke up in because it was dark. Didn't see much else on the drive down straight off the boat. But Hobart is obviously an old town set around 1800. A lot of buildings that age, 1820. Most of them built.
You've been remembering many of the construction phases.
I used to know the contractors.
Yeah.
But they are still in pristine condition, and I think government, who's ever responsible, has put a lot of time and effort into making sure they stay that way. They look like they've just been finished, but the other great part about it is the new part of Hobart blends in beautifully with the old. It's just a beautiful, beautiful town. Waterfront, spectacular. Don't know how they get all those Sydney and Hobart yachts into Constitution Dock. It's very tiny, but they all fit somehow. No, Hobart was very good, but outside, one of the surprises for me was we're thinking that Tassie are a long way behind, but agriculturally they are up and about. I can assure you there's a lot of irrigation through the state, highly productive farming country, because there's not a lot of it that is productive because most of Tasmania is bush, trees and mountains. Everywhere you look on any day, you can see mountains. Parts of Victoria you go for a drive and it gets a bit flat and boring, but Tassie is constantly beautiful wherever you look with the mountains, and when you get amongst them, the trip to Cradle Mountain was a real highlight. And going up through the little villages, and I do call them villages because they are a bit of a time warp going back to them, but all pretty little towns, wonderful bakeries.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a highlight of Tassie.
Nice.
Beautiful pies and cakes and vanilla slices. Beautiful.
Were you surprised when you were driving from Hobart to Launceston that you found yourself going through Perth?
Yes, Perth is
it's a lot smaller than you remember,
town.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I've been there a few times to Perth, and I drove through and I thought, it's a lot smaller, I remember it.
It is a very pretty little town. There's a lot of... went to Avoca at one stage.
Did you?
As well, yeah.
You should have stayed in Tasmania. I know the bloke that owns the Avoca pub.
Do you?
He's a Melburnian. He bought the pub to do the to restore it, and then COVID hit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's from Croydon or somewhere. I interviewed him on a podcast.
Yeah, well, it was one of the... Well, there's many towns, and I can't think of... I didn't find... I must admit, I didn't find Mottawarri, and there certainly wasn't a Geelong West over there, and definitely not an Inverleigh, but there has been... Yeah, look, I can't remember a better couple of weeks spent than driving around. So if you want to do it, folks, I would suggest give the Spirit of Tasmania rather than flying over. One thing, interestingly, though, if you're thinking of towing a van around, there is quite a difference between the rates for car and van and car. And someone came up with a theory that they want to discourage people from bringing caravans to Tassie because a lot of them just free camp and they think they're not putting as much into the economy as someone that would go and stay in a motel or a B&B that were in their own car. Being such a small place, you can get from one side of the island to the other very quickly. You can see most things in day trips, as we did. Stayed in Hobart for a week and did 4 cruises. So did Port Arthur and the beautiful town of Richmond. That's a delight.
Did you go to the Motor Museum there?
No.
There's a Motor Museum. Richmond or Ross, I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah, Richmond is a beautiful little... And because the key feature of Richmond is old. It is really a go back in time. All the buildings, as I said about Hobart, are all in pristine condition. Beautiful, beautiful old buildings. Port Arthur was amazing, and it had nothing to do with what its most recent reason for being historic. When you go back to its early stages and you look at the architecture and feel what it would have been like living in those conditions, which you do get that experience walking through the old jail.
Because your dad wouldn't have talked to you much about his experience there.
No, he didn't. And the other thing on a more modern basis too, if you haven't heard of Mona, you really should go and see Mona in Hobart, which is it's modern art on steroids, and it was created by a man who had a lot of money that he wanted to give back to, and he's basically drilled a hole down into a sandstone block, gone a long way down underground, and filled it with modern and contemporary art. It is mind-bogglingly brilliant. There's some of it which is way off beam, and you would just walk past without giving it a second glance, and you can do that because there's plenty of other great things to see, but that is a full day well spent at Mona in Hobart. That would be probably their major tourist attraction at the moment, I'd imagine.
Excellent. And just up the road from a very well-known brand of chocolate factory that I may or may not have visited in my time when I was there.